Thank you.
Hey, Justin, are you trolling?
We'll see who counts the food.
Come on, man.
This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin Freakin.
Clinically saying, put your dicks away, but I can't stop messing with my pussy. Incredibly needy cat. Oh god, I'm choking him with my headphones. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. I got a smoky. Say hey to everyone, Smokey. Welcome to the Troll Patrol live. It's a freaking Sunday. Good evening, DJ Dub, Warlord, Chainsaw. Good evening, everyone. My apologies to anyone who tuned in on Thursday night and I was not here. I did say it at the ass end of the show that if nothing big happened, I was going to take a night off, chill out, relax. That's what I did. Went to the weed store. So I can safely say I'm not high enough for this shit. The girl at the weed store told me that this was the best shit she'd ever had. It's really pretty. I don't know if it's the best shit I've ever had, but it's really pretty. Dutch berry is what it is. Speaking of Dutch, I got a Dutch oven. I ordered a Dutch oven. I made soup in a Dutch oven earlier. Fantastic. I made tomato bisque. Had a cheese. I'm very stuffed right now. Usually you guys are talking about food and I get all hungry. I am fucking stuffed. Might fall asleep before we get to the news. Who knows? Get a little of this Dutch berry in me. I saw that in the Discord. Everyone wanted to cancel Justin Trudeau. Had an SS member? What the fuck? The floor of Canadian Parliament? On the eve of Yom Kippur? I'm not seeing a link to a story. I don't know who this Corey Morgan is. Today is Yom Kippur, correct? That's Marjorie Taylor Greene.
You live in sexual anarchy.
Once again, I need to reset the drops. That's my dumbass doing that shit. Marjorie Taylor Greene apparently facing ridicule over tweeting out a Hanukkah menorah, which is not a symbol of Yom Kippur, which is the Jewish New Year, which is today or yesterday or tomorrow. I don't fucking know. Can I be canceled for not knowing? Unlike
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
Despite what the people on BitChute say when they watch my videos, I am not Jewish. BitChute followers, not that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, I ran people off. Everybody on YouTube left. Apparently thinking I'm an anti-Semite. Warlord, that's kind of anti-Semitic to say that. No, I just have a big nose. Jesus, dude, cancel Warlord. Here's your meme of the day. The throat goat seeing the latest memes about handies and ensuring that her hard-earned title remains intact. For those of you who are unaware, apparently, Nancy Reagan sucked the dick of every man in Hollywood. She never met a dick that she didn't suck. Those are just the facts. I'm just here to deliver the facts to you.
You live in sexual anarchy.
What warlord? I'm not slut shaming her. I applaud her for that. However, you know, much like Lauren Boebert, there is a air of hypocrisy. Richard, good evening. Rule of thumb, usually you shouldn't give a standing ovation to a Waffen SS officer. But also, I do not have a link to a story on this. So I don't know the full context. As if there's a context that makes it better. But you never know. Were they applauding his death? That's totally cool. You can give a standing ovation to that. Applauding his sentencing. A censure. I don't know. Context. It'll be Christmas before you know it. I keep saying that, and it's never been truer than right now. It's going to be Christmas before you know it. I feel like it's Christmas tonight for me. There's several stories that are just like Troll Patrol appropriate. A gator down in Florida, because of course it was in Florida. We've got a couple of stories out of Florida because of course we ought to just call it the Florida Corner or some shit, like in tonight's Florida Corner, Florida man, blah blah blah. This time a gator is involved in a murder somehow, I do believe. Seen walking down the street with human body parts in its mouth. Speaking of human body parts, a man was gored to death by a bull in the what do they call it? The running of the bulls, the popular Spanish festival, which is probably a bad idea. Venezuela had to send like 12K troops. Almost 12K troops into a gang-controlled prison that was equipped with a pool, a zoo, a nightclub. It was a luxury prison ran by a... I love it. Benjamin Netanyahu gave a speech to the UN a couple of days ago. Pissed some people off, pissed some Palestinians off. Got him protested here in the U.S. A standing ovation for a Ukrainian who served in a Nazi unit. This is Canadian Broadcasting Company, the CBC. Clinically, good evening. Did I tell you good evening? Those gathered in the house responded with applause and a standing ovation. Rhoda was responding to condemnation from Jewish groups and others stemming from a moment during Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's visit to Parliament. Why do Nazis follow him around? During the visit, Rhoda said the man was a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him all for his service. I've subsequently become aware of more information, which causes me to regret my decision to honor Hunka. I wish to make clear that no one, including fellow parliamentarians and the Ukraine delegation, was aware of my intention of or of my remarks before I delivered them, Rota says.
The Waffen-SS was the military wing of the unit tied to the German Nazi Party that was responsible
The killer mustache, my man. Very well kept.
for administering the Holocaust. The specific unit in question was responsible for the massacre of thousands of individuals and had units who were involved with the massacre of Jewish individuals during the Holocaust. So the fact that that this individual and by proxy the organization he was a member of was given a standing ovation.
Tim, good evening.
Comments is deeply troubling. The unit.
Deeply troubling. Deeply troubling.
After a
Got a comment. Good
reception
evening.
in Washington, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky turning to Canada for a warmer.
Did he just look at the camera and go, money? Money.
After a mixed reception in Washington, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky turning to Canada for a warmer welcome.
What?
With us from first days of full-scale war.
19 months later, Ukraine's in the midst of a full-scale counteroffensive against Russia. As it grinds forward, Zelensky's scrambling for long-term.
Oh, morning.
I'm announcing $650 million in new military assistance over.
I was stunned, maybe a little stoned. Morning makes more sense. you just look at the camera, money. Thank you, clinically.
Over the next 3 years to supply Ukraine with 50 armored vehicles, including armored medical evacuation vehicles.
I feel like I was going by the context clues. Thank you, clinically.
In London, Ontario.
During his first visit to Canada since the war began, Zelensky addressed Parliament,
Je te remercie, Canada.
thanking Canada for sticking by his side.
Canada's support for Ukraine with weapons and equipment has allowed us to save thousands of lives.
What Russia's done, he said, must not go unpunished.
It is genocide. What Russian occupiers are doing to Ukraine.
He's now looking to Canada not just for aid, but for diplomatic leadership for his peace plan and to hold Russia accountable.
It is never enough only to choose the right side. You also need to be able to be a leader on the side, and you do. You are a leader.
Zelensky's speech received at least a dozen standing ovations. There was also one for this man, a 98-year-old Ukrainian Canadian who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians during the Second World War. Zelensky's parting words, what Canada's Governor General told.
Wait. Ukrainian independence. What?
Zelensky's. There was also one for this man, a 98-year-old Ukrainian Canadian who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians during the Second World War. Zelensky's parting words, what Canada's Governor General taught him today, a word in Inuktitut.
She said the meaning of this word
Guess
is
it's one way to
don't
put it.
give up. Don't give up, stay strong against all odds. And so shall it be. Аюната, Canada. Аюната, Ukraine. Слава Україні!
Yes, seen as the
new financial support from Canada, but
seeing as the Russians fought the Nazis, arguably won the Second World War. Yeah, that should set off alarm bells. Oof. Well, cancel Justin. Cancel Justin. Wasn't what I was gonna start off with tonight, but it works. I was gonna start off with we're about less than a week away from a government shutdown here in the U.S. By the way, we have the second Republican presidential primary debate that is on Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, so that means we get an hour of news. We're going to stay on YouTube this time. It's being streamed by Rumble. Everybody was cool. Everybody was cool with her. Trump is visiting. We're going to talk about that. Trump is visiting striking auto workers. That's gonna be a topic of conversation here in just a second. We are going to watch the Republican primary debate. We'll get an update on who has and has not made that as we get closer. Wednesday night special primary debate coverage. But we are now 6 days away from a potential government shutdown. Boom.
Clock is ticking for Congress to pass a spending bill to avoid a government shutdown. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who is facing challenges within his own party, outlined a new plan that he says is confident will help end the standoff once the House returns Tuesday. But leaders of the largest federal employee labor union are less optimistic and warn the writing is on the wall, they say. On Friday, the Biden administration directed federal agencies to begin preparations for a shutdown. Christina Ruffini is at the White House this morning. Christina, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. As you can see, we're getting some of those effects from Ophelia behind me, but most of the focus is on the storm on Capitol Hill. Now, with news that lawmakers were going home this weekend, instead of staying to work out a deal, President Biden took to social media to say, last time there was a government shutdown, 800,000 Americans were furloughed or worked without pay. But enjoy your weekend.
The federal government is bracing for funding lapse, warning federal employees that if Congress can't strike a deal before October 1st, they could see a pause in their paychecks.
We still remain hopeful, although the writing's on the wall.
I believe we have a majority here, and we can work together to solve this.
The House will be in order.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has been fighting with hardliners in his own party, trying to get them to pass a stopgap measure until they can work out a larger spending bill.
I still believe if you shut down, you're in a weaker position. You need the time to fund the government while you pass all the appropriations.
Earlier this week, a group of House Republicans blocked a short-term funding measure for the Pentagon.
I don't mind telling you I gasped a little just a bit ago when I heard that there was a rule failure.
It concerns me that we are dysfunctional, that the House is struggling to pass really the most basic obligation we have.
This is not something we can fix.
The White House says President Biden helped negotiate a budget compromise on the debt ceiling earlier this year, and that this time it's up to Republicans in the House.
The best plan is to not have a shutdown. The best plan is for House Republicans to stop their partisan political play and not do this to hurt Americans.
What do you guys think happens? Is McCarthy getting ousted?
There are roughly 2.2 million federal employees. Some might be furloughed temporarily, and other essential workers will have to keep coming in, but without a paycheck. Nancy?
Christina Ruffini, thank you.
Do you think we get a new Speaker of the House just days from now? Here's what the different politicians had to say earlier today as they went on the morning shows. First up, the Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin.
Do you expect the government to shut down?
I think the Senate got off at least to a good start. We were in a positive frame of mind moving forward when the interruption occurred on the floor of the Senate by one Republican senator and in the House by the inability of the Speaker to get a majority for anything. Funding our government, the critical services, depends on a bipartisan approach, Democrats and Republicans working together.
I'll bet on Kevin McCarthy any day, and we certainly have time. But he's in a very difficult position because the holdouts keep saying to Kevin McCarthy, don't bring bipartisan bills to the floor. We don't want you to use Democrat votes to try to avert a shutdown. But they're using Democrat.
You've got Nancy Mace, you've got Steve Scalise. Those are like the next two in line. The Republican leadership in the House. Steve Scalise was the one that was shot during the congressional baseball game by a Bernie Sanders fan. They love to point out. Ooh.
Votes to try to cause a shutdown. You know, the Republicans need to vote for Republican bills, and we can avert this shutdown.
We Democrats believe very strongly it's when you make a deal, you live by it. And the Speaker made a deal McCarthy seems to be backing away from the deal because 5 or 6 people on his side of the aisle seem to be calling the shots. The tail wagging the dog is not the way you do this.
It wasn't an
Good evening, Flash.
I mean, just from the transportation side alone, it meant us accepting cuts that Republicans were demanding to programs that we wanted to use to fund more roads and bridges and airports. But we made that deal, and all we're asking is that they live up to that deal. The shutdown is being used by some House Republicans as leverage to get budget cuts over and above the deal that was made.
Our poll found that more Americans would blame Democrats for a possible shutdown than Republicans. How do you explain that?
I just don't think that's how it's going to actually play out in a Republican shutdown. This is because Republicans on the Hill can't even agree among themselves. If they can't be organized enough among themselves, if the House Republican Conference is in such chaos that they can't even accept a deal that they supported earlier this year, or in the words of one House Republican, take yes for an answer, then I think Americans are going to see very quickly how we got in that situation.
I called it a month ago, and I said we're on a path to a shutdown because Speaker McCarthy wants that and President Biden wants that. Everyone feels as if this is a political problem.
I don't think either of them want that.
Who's going to get hurt the most is the American public. So we have to come together and we have to pass appropriations bills. Continuing resolutions don't solve the problem. They just kick the can down the road.
But the reality is we had the whole month. September 30th came upon us, and it happens about this time every year, ma'am. Yeah. And yet we had our head in the sands, and we didn't do anything about it, and now we're up on that. And now the folks that want to keep their word to their constituents, we're the bad guys. And all we want to do is have responsible government, ma'am. Every year we do this, the temporary. We say, and the latest strategy is to say, let's not call it a continued resolution. The American public won't know it. That's ridiculous. Or they say, let's
ridiculous.
pass a CR, continued resolution, so that we can stop passing CRs. That's like telling a crack addict, we're going to give you more crack to keep you off of crack. It doesn't work, ma'am. If they want to do their duty, they're all struck on doing their duty. Tell them to pass a budget.
Right.
That was Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee with the crackhead analogy. We are off to a great start tonight on the Troll Patrol live. Oh my God! Someone else who appeared on one of the Sunday morning shows this morning was Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was on Face the Nation. I figured we'd watch her whole little interview. I liked that little piece from the Washington Post there. That's the reason why you got a WAPO poll. That's who had done the editing on the video that we just watched. Stitching together all the different appearances on the morning shows. AOC was on Face the Nation. Let's hear what she had to say. Asked about a number of topics. I'm sure the shutdown is one of them.
Good morning. And
good morning.
To the nation. It's setting up to be another consequential week in Washington, with just a few days to go before a possible government shutdown unless Congress strikes an 11th hour deal to fund it. We'll get to that in a moment, but we begin with New York Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the expanding auto workers strike. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
This strike now in 20 states. I know you are headed to Missouri later to strike outside a GM facility. The president goes to Michigan Tuesday. He only announced that after Donald Trump said he was going to UAW strike. Do you think injecting this high level of presidential politics complicates getting a settlement?
Well, I think right now we are in such a crisis in our economy, a crisis of inequality, that it is going to take a level of political and popular support unlike that we've seen in a strike situation like this in recent and modern history in order for us to get a breakthrough. What we've seen at the big three are CEOs giving themselves as much as a 40% wage and compensation increase, while workers have actually seen a real wage decrease over the last 10 to 15 years. And in order for us to break that norm, I think it's going to take an unprecedented level of involvement to make sure that workers get what they deserve here.
Shawn Fain, the head of UAW, said the president should join us on the picket line, but he's also said he doesn't necessarily want the White House involved in talks. He's indicated that could complicate things. How long do you expect the strike to go on?
Well, I think it depends on how long the CEOs of the big three want to drag this out. But what we are seeing right now is an absolutely astronomical level of public support for auto workers here in polling and beyond. And I don't think that dragging this out very long, I don't think that the threat of I think an artificial threat of raising car prices and all of this is going to really stick with the American people, who know that a lot of these price increases have not gone to auto worker wages. They've gone to CEO pockets. They've gone to stock buybacks, hundreds of millions of dollars in stock buybacks. So I think it is in the interest of the big three to make sure that we get to a resolution quickly. UAW has made their demands clear. Ford has already had progress and made progress, which is why we're seeing these strikes expand with GM and some of the other folks. But I think what's important here is that we keep the focus on wages and
GM announcing layoffs.
Work for these auto workers.
Fuck them.
UAW's president, when he was with us last week, said, when I asked him why the union hadn't yet endorsed President Biden, he said that has to be earned. That sounds like he's disappointed that party leadership is not doing as much as they could. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think it always has to be earned. And President Biden showing up to the picket line on Tuesday is a historic event. We have never seen in modern history a president show up to a picket line like this. And I think it should be earned. It needs to be earned. And I believe that President Biden is working towards that, especially when he lands in Michigan on Tuesday, to earn that.
You know, one of the things that's happening in the auto industry, as you know, is this market shift and transition to electric vehicles. You were quoted back in July saying you look forward to buying a union-made electric vehicle, but you currently have a non-union-made Tesla. UAW already makes some electric vehicles. So why wasn't that? Is it a problem with the quality? Is it a problem with the style? Is the market just not there?
No.
He thought she was cool.
Purchased, during the pandemic, when before a vaccine had come out. So travel between New York and Washington, the safest way that we had determined was an EV, but that was prior to some of the new models coming out on the market that had the range available. But we're actually looking into trading in our car now. So we're looking into it, and hopefully we will soon.
I asked you that because Tesla suck. Elon Musk, who has a majority share in Tesla, has said a lot of things against the unions. And a lot of these electric vehicle battery manufacturing plants as well are not unionized. So there's tension here.
Yes. Yeah, and it's something that I have been speaking with President Fain about, because one thing that we're all on the same page about is that we do not want the transition from a fossil fuel economy to an electric economy to represent an erosion in the unionization and rights of workers. And this is something.
Do it quickly, that's essentially what's happening. A lot of these are joint ventures, these battery facilities. They're not owned by the big three wholly.
Yeah, and this is one way in which we want to use historic legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act and others, which represents historic climate legislation, to incentivize everything from tax credits to federal investment to facilities.
I want to know
battery production. Or
if the government's going to put some money into something, why don't the workers own a piece of that? That would make sense to me.
Mining sites, and from the beginning to the very end, to make sure that they're union, to make sure that we incentivize the production of these new technologies, to make sure that it also represents an escalation in rights and wages for everyday workers. In fact, I'm currently working on legislation, a resolution to to focus on that. Everything from mining these minerals to battery production and implementation, for that to be a union track beginning to end supply.
And when you mention mining, you're talking about human rights violations in third countries.
Not only that, but also domestic mining that we have going on here in the United States, in New Mexico and in Arizona, places like Oak Flats, where there are frontline communities, indigenous communities that really deserve a lot of focus and attention, in addition to...
She did a good job pivoting on that question.
To
Good
make
evening,
sure
Shelley.
highest standard as well, and environmental standard as well.
Because there's been concern about, as you know, forced labor in China.
Absolutely.
And Ford using some of those facilities and Tesla, according to the Washington Post. I want to ask you, though, about migration as well. You were quoted in the New York Times in August as saying, immigration is arguably this administration's weakest issue. What did you mean?
Well, you know, I think the politics around immigration in the United States is, to no surprise to many people, one of the most contentious issues. We saw this dramatically inflamed under President Trump, but it remains to be a very controversial and contentious issue. And that makes, I believe, enacting some of the policy changes necessary much more complicated and difficult. Now, this week, after perhaps almost a year of pushing from both the Congressional Hispanic Caucus to the New York delegation in Congress, we pushed to make sure that the Biden administration extended temporary protective status, otherwise known as TPS, for Venezuelans, which will allow and open the pathway for Venezuelan migrants to actually begin working and supporting themselves, which will reduce the strain on our public systems, particularly New York's shelter system and more.
That's for 500,000 Venezuelans, but only if they came here before July.
She's really good.
So does Congress need to do something?
If she stays in politics, they might drive her out.
Has put forward, or others, to put that into law, so it's not just a one-off.
Well, I definitely think that we need to have comprehensive immigration reform so that we aren't constantly doing this patchwork policy extensions. That has not happened for decades. But additionally, I think we also need to examine the root of this problem, because if we are constantly engaging in foreign policy that drives people to our southern border. In this specific instance, U.S. sanctions that were originally authored by Marco Rubio began and precipitated, certainly took a large part in the driving of populations to our southern border. Shortly after those sanctions, those broad-based sanctions.
You're talking about Venezuela.
Yes. Shortly after those broad-based sanctions were enacted, we started seeing dramatic increases in these populations that were coming to our southern border. And so we have to address the root of these population movements and the migration crisis. And we also have to address the domestic U.S. policy issues when it comes to immigration reform.
But you know, the Maduro government has also been responsible for large parts of that. Are you saying that you want the Biden administration to pull back pressure on him?
I think we need to re-examine the nature of these sanctions. There are sanctions that are very specific. For example, the Magnitsky Act sanctions that do actually focus on the decision makers and people who may be violating norms, practices, civil rights. But broad-based sanctions that punish the overall economy and harm everyday working people, that are driving them into the economic and political destitution that force millions of people, both not just to the United States, but even to our regional partners. Colombia alone has absorbed a population of 2 to 3 million Venezuelan migrants. We have to really address the destabilization issue so that we're not constantly dealing with this, with the issues of overwhelm and displacement and the magnitude that we see them.
So when Secretary Mayorkas says Congress needs to fix the immigration system, you're saying the federal government also has to make changes in its foreign policy to do what you are arguing. Do you think President Biden needs to go to the border? Do you intend to go to the border?
Yes, you know, we absolutely do. We've also been dealing with the busing situation in New York City, so we have really been looking at that as part of our front line as well. And we want to also be an example to the country as well of a humane process and the supports and changes that are necessary for us to maintain that standard of care. And it's a standard of care that, frankly, is something that we should be proud of. Folks are coming into the Roosevelt Hotel. There are absolutely capacity issues that we had been struggling with.
Migrants have to leave after 30 days now.
And we have these changes from the Adams administration. But when you step foot into the Roosevelt Hotel, people are getting vaccinated, kids are getting enrolled in school, we are seeing people that are actually getting mental health care assessments, and now, hopefully, with this recent designation for work authorization and the ability to work through TPS, hopefully folks are going to be getting jobs from the New York businesses that are asking to hire them.
But you don't think that drives more migration?
I think what's driving migration is the economic destitution and the political destabilization that we are seeing in Latin America.
Yeah, she
Someone
already
being
explained
able to
that.
get a job in
What
New
up?
York City is not what is driving millions of people to leave Venezuela. It is the economic destabilization and the political destabilization that people are experiencing there.
I want to ask you about some Democratic politics. You were outspoken about George Santos, the New York congressman, that he should resign because of all the legal issues and ethical issues.
George Santos is taking up for Bob Menendez.
Jersey, as you know, has just been indicted on bribery charges. Should he resign? And what do you think of the statement that it has to do with him being a Latino?
Also deja vu, because when I saw it, I was like, wait a minute, didn't that already happen? And yes, it did. It happened like 10 years ago. Oh my God. He's twice indicted Senator Bob Menendez.
Well, I think the situation is quite unfortunate, but I do believe that it is in the best interests for Senator Menendez to resign in this moment. As you mentioned, consistency matters.
He ain't. Update as of
the details in this indictment.
As of like an hour or two ago, he ain't going nowhere. The balls on this guy
are extremely serious. They involve the nature of not just his, but all of our seats in Congress. And while, as a Latina, there are absolutely ways in which there is systemic bias, but I think what is here in this indictment is quite clear. And I believe it is in the best interest to maintain the integrity of the seat. I want to emphasize that all people they must be extended the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. That is the legal reality in our country. But when it comes to the political and the standard of dignity that we want to maintain for the public in the United States Congress, I do believe it is in the best interests.
I want to ask you quickly, some Republican members like Matt Gaetz have threatened to try to oust Speaker McCarthy if he threw a motion to vacate. Would you vote with him as a Democrat to get to 218 to oust Speaker McCarthy?
I mean, I think that we would have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Speaker McCarthy has been very weak. I think that he has also engaged in just...
So Menendez is actually expected to announce his re-election bid at a Monday press conference. Just days after his bribery charges, the 69-year-old Democrat issued a statement on Friday, the day of his Manhattan federal indictment, insisting, "I'm not going anywhere," despite widespread calls, including from top officials in his own party, to resign. Monday's expected press conference would be his first in-person appearance since he and his wife were charged with taking hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes in the form of gold bars, a Mercedes-Benz convertible, cash, and even exercise machines and an air purifier. Menendez is expected to announce his plans to run for office again in 2024, even if he needs to run outside the Democratic Party. This is the senator from New Jersey. Al Franken shouldn't have resigned. What the fuck? Like, this is amazing. This is amazing. Bob Menendez, everybody. Oh, the Forbes story with the wild music. Kevin McCarthy has called on him to resign. That's not really surprising. The growing list of people. I thought we were going to get some sound bites here, and we did not. My apologies. Bob Menendez, everybody. Speaking of criminals running for office in 2024. Okay. So this is a apparent political scientist who's talking about a brilliant move by Trump in visiting the auto workers this Wednesday instead of attending the Republican presidential debate, which is going on at 9 o'clock Eastern. We're so broadcasting that on YouTube and Kick.
Actually, my next question, because he was going to send 2 top White House officials, then he reportedly pulled back. He's not sending anyone from the White House to negotiate or help with negotiations, rather. Do you think that's a misstep? And I do want to talk about the former President Trump in this, because he's capitalizing on the moment. He's skipping the second debate next week to instead speak with automakers in Detroit. So who's winning and losing right now?
Well,
politically, of course. Yes, politically,
well, right.
Of course.
The American public is losing because this is going to have ripple effects through the whole economy. And we're already beginning to see it because suppliers are beginning to shut down. I think that
going to raise the wages of everyone.
To Detroit, I just thought this is a brilliant move because the key thing is that union leaders are very much pro-Democrat, but the union workers are kind of torn. They like the Democrats' support for union demands. They like that it's pro-union. They like the fact that Democrats are against right-to-work laws, which are commonplace in southern states where a lot of the production is moving. But they also know that they're worse off now under this administration with high inflation and so forth, and they like a lot of the other Republican policies.
What policies?
Workers are relatively conservative, and this is part of a
hate on drag queens and trans people. That's the only other policy I see.
What's sometimes called voter realignment. If you wear a blue collar, you're increasingly Republican. Those were people who were the backbone of the Democratic Party. They're now increasingly Republican. And what I would say is blue collars going one way, polo collars going the other way. And we're seeing that suburbs like Scarsdale around New York or Winnetka, Glencoe around Chicago.
That doesn't make any sense. If we're talking about union workers, how does that make any goddamn sense when we have like a much more favorable NLRB under Biden than we have under any fucking president in recent memory? The fuck? And then like there is no real immigration policy other than to hate on immigrants. Fearmonger about immigrants. I don't understand any of this. Anti-woke policies.
Up yours, woke moralists. we'll see who cancels who.
Apparently Howard Stern is woke now, and we're going to talk about that because that's in the bullshit part of the show.
Oh, and it's equivalent around every other city, Shaker Heights near Cleveland. Those used to be solidly Republican areas, and they're now essentially Democratic areas. And I just think you're seeing a major shift. Trump capitalized on it, accelerated it, and solidified it on the Republican side.
It doesn't make any sense.
Continue after him. How else could you get a state like West Virginia, which was all Democratic until fairly recently, switch almost immediately to being all Republican?
Because they busted the unions and 9/11 happened and they made appeals to hatred and shit. Fear-mongered. Benjamin Netanyahu was protested when he was making his speech to the UN, or as he was on his way to make his speech to the UN.
More than 1,000 Israelis and Americans packed the streets outside the UN today as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the General Assembly. There is outrage and opposition against Netanyahu's government in their push for a wide judicial overhaul there. The move is considered undemocratic by Israeli protesters who've taken to the streets since the start of the year.
The United States is basically the second Jewish country, and everything that happens in Israel affects the community here.
Netanyahu also spoke about his hopes to broker more peace treaties with Arab states, including a possible treaty with Saudi Arabia.
He had a weird little chart that he pulled out during his speech. He thinks he's Katie Porter or some shit up in here.
A few years ago, I stood here with a red marker to show the curse, a great curse, the curse of a nuclear Iran. But today I bring this marker to show a great blessing, the blessing of a new Middle East between Israel, Saudi Arabia, and our other neighbors. We will not only bring down barriers between Israel and our neighbors, we'll build a new corridor of peace and prosperity that connects Asia through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, to Europe. This is an extraordinary change, a monumental change, another pivot of history. But I also believe that we must not give the Palestinians a veto over new peace treaties with Arab states. Sanctions must be snapped back. And above all, Iran must face a credible nuclear threat.
Al Jazeera putting some very dramatic music under that. Palestinian officials are fuming after Netanyahu's UN speech called the address arrogant and racist. Mahmoud al-Abbas, an advisor to Abbas, charges Israel's PM speech full of lies and contradictions, says there can be no regional stability when Palestinians' rights are violated. A senior Palestinian Authority official tore into Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech earlier on Friday at the United Nations General Assembly, calling the address arrogant and racist. The Prime Minister of the occupation government, Benjamin Netanyahu, did not surprise us with his speech, and I can't believe he's back. Can't believe it's Netanyahu again. This motherfucker. If Trump becomes president again, Jesus. Did not surprise us with his speech at the United Nations, which was, as usual, an arrogant and racist speech to a disgusting degree, full of lies and contradictions. about all the facts. This was according to Mahmoud al-Habash. Habash serves as the supreme Sharia judge of the PA, the Palestinian Authority, and as an advisor to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, the religious affairs and Islamic relations. That's a hell of a title. The Prime Minister of the occupation government has used the method of lying over and over until the people believe you. They continue lying until you believe yourself, Habash said. This method has become shamefully exposed before the international community, and there is no longer anyone who believes these lies and distortions of facts, to the point that the United Nations Hall was completely empty during his speech because the world is no longer able to hear the torrent of lies, arrogance, and disconnection from reality that Netanyahu lives in. Tore him a new asshole. That's what I call kicking authority in the balls.
He's kicking authority in the balls.
Did kind of sound like he's threatening to nuke Iran and team up with Saudi Arabia to do it. AOC mentioned the destabilization of the American South. I found this story very interesting. In Venezuela, they sent 11,000 troops to seize control of a gang-run prison that had a pool, a zoo, and a nightclub. The government of Venezuela said it took back control of Tocaron prison in the country's north. The institution was controlled by inmates from the powerful Tren de Aragua gang. It acted as the gang's headquarters and included luxuries such as a pool, zoo, and nightclub. We have video of this. Apparently munitions they seized from this luxury prison that a gang was running in Venezuela. They were very well armed. I assume they had a lot of drugs too, right? How else is the gang making money if they ain't running drugs? They have a lot of motorcycles. Oh, they were mining Bitcoin. Dustin, good evening. Oh, that looks like some hashish. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro deployed over 11,000 troops to gain back control of the facility in an operation that he called a great success in the fight against criminal organizations. The powerful Tren de Aragua gang had been in control of the prison and had filled it with a variety of luxuries over the years, including a pool, a small zoo with exotic animals like ostriches and flamingos, a nightclub, and a restaurant. They had a playground. Check out their playground. Tren de Aragua started out as a construction union for a railway project in Venezuela in 2005, but it developed into an international criminal organization. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. With operations in other countries like Chile and Colombia. Some of its criminal activities include human trafficking, and that's not cool, extortion, and migrant smuggling, while it also was suspected of dealing in arms and drug trafficking. So this was the restaurant. Not exactly fine dining, but looks like they had a nice little barbecue stand. Gang's leader Hector Guerrero Flores, who was serving a 17-year sentence for murder and drug trafficking, reportedly escaped. The government subsequently issued a statement saying it was launching a second phase of the operation to capture all and every one of the escaped criminals. But the prison was not only home to the inmates, but also to some of their relatives. I am waiting to hear where they are taking my husband. I was living in there, but they kicked us out. I don't want to laugh. Despite losing the prison, it is unlikely to be the end of the gang. Rana Risquez, author of the book Trendy Agragua, the gang that revolutionized organized crime in Latin America, told BBC Mundo. Their center of operations has been closed down, but the leaders of the organization and its cells abroad can continue functioning. A man has died after being gored by a bull. I guess I should have a content warning on this one. I think this is inhumane treatment of animals. They shouldn't do this shit. I know it's like it's a tradition. You probably shouldn't shit on cultural traditions, but this is kind of a shitty tradition. It's shitty to the bulls. A man has died after being gored by a bull while another was struck in the leg at the popular Spanish festival. The man was gored in a festival in Pablo de Fornals in Valencia on Saturday. The man has died after being gored by a bull at a festival in eastern Spain while another man was hit in the leg by the same animal. The Spanish man, who has not been named, was pierced in his side by the creature during a bull running festival in the town of Pablo de Fornal in the Valencia region on Saturday. The man, who local media reported was 61 years old, was taken to the hospital but died from his injuries. Officials also revealed the second man was in the hospital in a stable condition after being gored by the same bull.
Se fica uno sole. Se fica uno sole.
Que mori.
¿Qui?
Mori.
Y no se pica Juan, tío. Bueno, no se pica Juan, tío.
Oh, shit.
José Vicente, con la parada. Claro, la parada tenéis. Ahí está, ya está. Pero, tío.
Ow!
Ya está, al de la peña. Ya está.
Pues no sé de Paco.
Ya está. Paco
Villasoya.
¿Sí?
No sé.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the bull in this scenario.
Puta manía que.
A uno de la peña y a un otro sé quién es. Si es que claro.
God damn! Oh! Ow! Oh shit! Was that the dude? Cause it looked like he took a horn. But there were several instances where I feel like that bull could have killed somebody. Like right there? That could have been the fatal incident. Yeah, why? I don't understand why they're doing this. No sense to me.
Puta manía que.
A uno de la peña y a otro sé quién es. Si es que claro.
Ooh. Ugh. Ooh. Well, that's your animal video for no, I'm playing. That's not your animal video for the night. Here's your animal video for the Oh, have you seen this? Have you seen this 14-foot gator? Because he was involved in a death. Might be a manhunt for this. A gator hunt. There might be a gator hunt.
First on Fox, a gruesome discovery in Pinellas County, where witnesses found this almost 14-foot gator with a body in its mouth this afternoon. This happened in the Ridgecrest community along 134th Street near Olmerton Road. Fox 13's Justin Matthews is out there live for us tonight. And Justin, I know you've been out there all afternoon. You actually spoke to a witness who saw this and went to get help. What did he have to say?
Yeah, it's a terrifying story. The witness I spoke to says he saw this gator in the water, ran to this fire station behind me, not too far. It's only about 400 feet from where he saw that huge alligator.
I was on my way to a job interview, and I was always looking to the lake, just, for fish and stuff, and I spotted the gator.
Jamarcus Bullard says he took a good look at it and noticed something was in the gator's mouth.
I noticed it had a body in its mouth, like a lower torso, so once I saw that, I ran straight to the fire department and got them. They confirmed it was the body.
Bullard says seeing something like that is surreal and tragic.
I thought it was fake. It was my first time seeing a gator in real life as well, so I was just like, it was pretty cool, but like once I saw what it had, I was like, is that like a mannequin body? It looked like it was pale and white.
After alerting the fire department, dozens of Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies and FWC officers got to the scene. A huge response along 134th Street North off of Olmerton Road in Largo. Sky Fox overhead.
I won't want to fuck with it.
On the ground. Investigators looking for answers. All of this in close proximity to a Head Start and a Boys and Girls Club.
All I keep thinking about is like all these little
kids.
You
think it was a kid?
Right behind me, and they come this way every single day.
Others who live nearby say they've seen some small alligators in the area before, but nothing quite like this. And in a place where there are a lot of pedestrians.
I mean, that it could have been anybody,
It's scary to think about. And Bullard says, with gators around, he's not going to be doing much walking in his neighborhood anymore.
I'm going to get me a bike or start catching a bus to work, because they don't have any gates or anything like that. They got small little gates, but somebody dies.
Yeah, and the FWC confirmed tonight that the alligator is just under 14 feet long, as you heard, and it was killed humanely. The agency says a body.
It didn't do anything wrong
with the gator, but the FWC isn't saying anything about who this victim is and if that body has anything to do with the alligator, if the alligator actually killed a person. That is still to be determined tonight. Reporting live in Largo, Justin Matthews, Fox 13 News.
The gator didn't do anything wrong. It's a predator. It does what it does. Why you gotta kill it? That pisses me off. You're in its territory. What the fuck do you expect? Jesus. Fucked up shit goes on in Florida. Content warning on this one. Earlier today in Florida, a train crash killed 6 people.
Back to another story that we have been following all throughout the morning here. This is coming in out of Florida, and we know that a collision involving a train and an SUV has left 5 people dead. We've also learned that 2 of the 5 are juveniles. This all happened last night at a crossing on US 92 that's over in Plant City. I do want to bring in Kaylee Tracy with our Fox 13 Tampa team. She is live for us over at the scene with the latest.
Tampon team.
Kaylee, a lot of information here left to figure out.
Yeah, just an incredibly heartbreaking story this morning, and some of the family members of those victims have been out here this morning. One woman telling me she was looking for her nephew's cell phone because it's still pinging at this location. Just incredibly tragic. That woman telling me her nephew was 17 years old and he was friends with one of the girls in the car who also passed away. They were on their way to a birthday party, she tells me, and she says her nephew was extremely excited for that birthday party. He took off of work at Chick-fil-A. He picked out an outfit, cowboy boots and bell-bottom jeans, and she said he had the brightest smile, and as you can only imagine, they can't even wrap their head.
God damn!
What happened hasn't even been 24 hours removed from this horrific accident. And also the sheriff out here in Hillsborough County, Chad Chronister, he says the 2 people who did survive this horrific crash, they were the driver and a front seat passenger. They're in the hospital this morning fighting for their lives. The sheriff says that crash happened just before 7 p.m. yesterday, and that according to video and witness statements, the SUV entered the train's path for unknown reasons. He says their hearts are shattered.
Whenever you compound that with the fact that some children lost their life here, maybe an entire family lost their life here tonight, we are all visibly shaken.
God damn!
We are all rattled at our core tonight after witnessing what happened here tonight.
The sheriff also tells us that the victims lived here in Plant City in Hillsborough County, and he says that at this crossing there's a stop sign, if you're able to take us back on camera here on this part of the tracks, but the tracks actually say over there private crossing, so that means that the arms do not come down that you may see at a public crossing. No flashing lights here, just that stop sign here, and he says he believes it's not as a frequently traveled part of those tracks, but that the train still does have that horn that sounds, but again, just that stop sign there. So
God damn!
The sheriff's office is working to learn, and they're also working to investigate the crash itself and identify all of these victims here, but they ask you to please keep this family, the community, and their first responders in your thoughts and prayers. Just a
thoughts and prayers
this morning.
Very horrific there. Kaylee Tracy with our Fox 13 Tampa team, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We will stay in touch to gather the latest details.
Sorry about that. That was horrific. How you gonna just have a stop sign? So apparently the right hates Howard Stern. Now, all throughout my career, I've been compared to Howard Stern. I've not really been the biggest Howard Stern fan. I was an Opie and Anthony fan. Howard's all right, I guess. I got nothing against him. I don't even really know why the right is attacking him. Apparently, even Donald Trump is getting in on it. Jesse Waters, not so much. You're gonna see that here in a second. Weird shit's going on here. Weird bedfellows. But here is Howard apparently saying, "I'm Howard Stern, but less funny." I would have thought I was funnier than Howard Stern. I don't particularly find Howard funny. Howard ain't out here talking about pissing in Dan Crenshaw's open eye hole. So here's Howard talking about how apparently he considers himself to be woke.
I'll play you the clip, but he does say, you know, I'm a big Howard Stern fan, and I started, but how he goes, yeah, but Howard is woke now. I hear that a lot.
Geez.
That I'm not good anymore because I'm woke. My whole career I've been hearing.
Well, maybe Metamucil is woke. Stop eating it.
Yeah. By the way, I kind of take that as a compliment that I'm woke. I'll tell you how I feel about it. To me, the opposite of woke is being asleep. And if woke means...
Now we're being profound over here.
Which is what I think it means. Or that I support people who want to be transgender, or I'm for the vaccine. Well, dude, call me woke as you fucking want. I'm not for stupidity. You know, I ran out Friday morning. I was over at CVS. Thank you, CVS. I went over there 9 a.m. and got myself that new vaccine for COVID. Fucking science. This fucking country is so great. You can get it for free. I mean, everyone can get it for free except me. I had to pay for it because some reason my fucking insurance, you know, they take your insurance card and they go, oh, your insurance for some reason doesn't. I go, I got the shittiest fucking.
How did you wind up with a bad policy? What's wrong with you?
Cost me $300 fucking bucks for me and Beth.
What?
Yeah.
Well, you got it.
No, more. Anyway, the rest of you will not have to pay.
Stop it. No, I've never. They take my information. They say they don't even look anymore because they have me in the file. And they say, has your insurance changed? No. Here's your shot.
I don't know what's going on. But anyway, I didn't care. I wanted it. I got there super early. And I always like
I honestly didn't know Howard was still going.
I'm like, God bless the United States. God bless the United States. I get every fucking...
God blesses everyone.
For those of you who think the government's trying to kill you or implant chips,
or
go
they're
ahead with
chipping you. I don't know why they're chipping you.
Go for those conspiracies. But I am woke, motherfucker, and I love it. I want to be a...
Loves it.
I want to read legitimate news sources. Here's how woke I am. I believe
we'll see who
the election was not rigged. Because
did you hear Trump's latest statement about how he decided the election was fake? Was that he just felt that way?
Yeah,
and
he had a feeling.
Listen to his lawyers. His lawyers said to him, "You lost the election." He said, "I didn't trust them. I didn't like them. I didn't respect them. I decided that the election was rigged."
So I'm woke, man. I think that's a compliment.
He thinks that's a compliment. Speaking of Trump and Howard Stern, Trump apparently does not like Howard anymore. Appeared on his show quite a few times, but has now called Howard Stern a broken weirdo. Former President Donald Trump poured fuel on his simmering feud with Howard Stern on Saturday, ripping the self-described king of all media as a broken weirdo who went woke. The real Howard Stern is a weak, pathetic, and disloyal guy who lost his friends and much of his audience. Trump, a former and frequent guest on Stern's raucous radio show, wrote on Truth Social, "I did his show many times in the good old days, and then he went woke. Nobody cares about him any longer. The shock jock's influence is gone. Without that, he's got nothing." We have here's Trump and Howard at a ball game or some shit. 2005 in Madison Square Garden. The host of the Howard Stern Show on SiriusXM declared this week, "I am woke, motherfucker." The radio host publicly cut ties with another former friend, Bill Maher. We're gonna get into that here in a second. But apparently Jesse Waters says that Howard can't actually be woke because Jesse Waters likes him. Oh, why am I into this petty bullshit?
Yeah, he thinks you're an idiot if you didn't take the vaccine. I listened to his show since the 90s. I like him. I think he's a funny guy. He doesn't understand what woke is.
Yeah.
He thinks it's not being for Trump. It's not that. He's not woke when it comes to political correctness, when it comes to gender, when it comes to race, when it comes to feminism.
He said he supported trans people, motherfucker.
And Howard from back in the day has changed. He's still not politically correct. His show's extremely edgy. He says ridiculous things that if this was said on this channel or on any other cable channel, he would absolutely get in huge trouble. But since he's on satellite, and he's been very successful on satellite, he can say whatever he wants. He's not doing the same types of things, but he's changed. He's way.
I used to have Sirius XM, and I don't have it anymore. I don't care. It doesn't offer me anything that I can't get on podcast. Howard was hedgy in the 80s, yeah, as he was coming up. WNBC.
30 years older, but he's still pretty edgy. He is obsessed with the pandemic. And that's what the whole woke thing is.
He's obsessed with the pandemic.
He admits he's an neurotic guy, and he's terrified of getting COVID. I don't think he's ever even gotten it.
Right.
Biden was the last one to get it. I think actually Howard is the only one in America that still hasn't gotten it.
I didn't get it.
You had it like 6 times. You were coughing up a lung. You just didn't test.
I didn't test.
So, you know, I don't even know if Howard agrees with boys changing in the same locker room as girls. He's kind of a anything goes guy. If you want to be transgender, be transgender. He doesn't care. He just doesn't really know how to define it. And I don't care because he's not that political of a guy. Only like, 10%, 5% of his show's on politics. And he doesn't really know that much about
Only 5 to 10% of your show's on politics.
I actually listen to
He
it.
wants to go on the show.
Yeah, you want to go on the show.
No, I would never go on that show.
You are so transparent.
I would never go on that show.
So transparent.
It up.
It's too dangerous. Me on that show? Are you kidding me?
I'll go hold your hand.
Yeah,
All right,
I
Harold.
need 2 hand holders.
Harold.
Yeah, what's Howard gonna probe you on there, Jesse Waters? What are you gonna say that's gonna be so bad? Apparently, Howard had some kind of falling out with Bill Maher. Because Maher had John Lennon's son on his podcast. I don't even know what's going on here, but we'll get the deets from them.
I must say, there's this thing that men do.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want to start a fight with them. We finally repaired our relationship, before the pandemic, and we're getting along great. Howard Stern.
Oh, okay.
But and when he did my
Wait, why are you talking about your beef with Howard Stern, with Julian Lennon? Is that what you brought him on your podcast to talk about?
real-time show, like right before the pandemic, and he's kind of razzing me in a good-natured way.
I'm sorry I didn't see that because I watch your show often.
Oh, it's you can YouTube it.
Okay.
How he was only on once ever, so that's that. And he's saying to me like, but Bill, you're
really up his own ass.
Don't you want to settle down? And he goes on about how much he loves his wife, Beth, which he has been doing on the air for like 10 years.
Yeah.
But we know Howard had this other wife before Beth. So he's trying to make me seem like I'm the, slightly immoral one because I won't settle down.
Dude loves his wife.
How does this gushing about the second wife, how does that make the first wife feel?
They're divorced.
Not gush about the person while the other person still can hear it?
Yeah, well, it depends how it all ended, really, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends how she feels about the whole circle.
Who's she?
The first wife, she might have been happy to get out of the whole thing.
Yeah, but it's still... I don't...
This is such a weird conversation.
It's still mean in a way.
What?
And celebrities.
Well, there's a lot of that going on.
Stupid.
I'm assuming Julian Lennon has some book or some shit.
I was not alive before her. Everything I was doing must have been like taking a shit compared to being with this woman I'm with now. And the first chick is like, what?
But I just think.
Why would the first chick care? Why do I care? I'm sorry, it's content. It's content.
So he had Julian Lennon as a guest, who I'm actually quite fond of. Remember Julian Lennon from the back of the day?
Julian, sure.
Yeah. So,
well, hold on.
Basically, he said,
hold on. Other than being John Lennon's son, what the fuck has Julian Lennon ever done? Does he have any kind of like music or anything? And like, I know Sean. I know the other son. I know his he's got a band with Les Claypool, and like I know him. I don't know no Julian Lennon. I don't know.
Says Howard Stern always gets on the radio and says he loves his wife. I've never been criticized for this, but he goes, but haven't we had enough of that? Like, what about
loving your wife?
She must feel. I feel really bad for her. So I go, what? What a sexist thing to say. Like, what a convoluted, nutty thing to say. Like, you're assuming, he says, it must hurt her feelings that I'm in love with a different one. It's assuming that he knows something about my first marriage, that, of course, the man must be leaving the woman, and the woman must be devastated and be sitting around pining away for her famous man.
And still listening to your every word.
Yeah. And yeah.
You could still be friends.
So I was laughing because Julian Lennon goes, well,
I'm friends with exes.
Depend on the situation. You don't know the circumstances.
Super Tad, good evening.
It didn't
phase Bill. He kept with his line of questioning.
No, it amped him up, and he goes,
it was uncomfortable.
Hollywood celebrities. First of all, I don't even live in Hollywood, but I'm evidently a stupid Hollywood celebrity. And he goes, I don't want to start in with Howard Stern. We finally made up, but he ought to shut his mouth. I mean, I don't think I come on the air every day and say I love my wife, but I thought it was a pretty positive message to, especially with my audience, to say to guys, instead of like ragging on our wives, how about talking about that we appreciate them and love them, but evidently, he's very worried about my relationship.
Well, this is a guy, and I put myself in this category.
Tell him, Robin.
I've never been married.
Right, fine.
Yeah, fuck it.
I never wanted to devote my life to anybody.
Fine.
And neither has he. He has no idea how that works. So how could he comment on it?
I don't know. But he felt very comfortable taking a shot at me. So I did something I'd never done before. I wrote him an email. I said, why don't you give me a phone call? Why don't you tell me what you think about my life? And
have him on the show.
Since you're,
have him and Beth on together.
Never wrote me back.
Oh, you didn't do this last night. This was a few days ago?
No, I did it yesterday. When I heard the clip, I said, why don't you give me a call? And I'll explain to you about my life.
You don't need to explain or justify yourself to anybody.
No, I just wanted to see how brave he was, if he was brave enough to call me and actually get on the phone with me, and zero response.
Have him on the show.
He can think what he wants.
So is this that?
I might watch Club Random if you go on.
On the podcast and smokes weed, yeah.
Well, as long as we're being honest. I mean, really, dude?
Well, ain't nothing wrong with the podcast when you
years old.
smoke weed.
Smoke weed. I mean, he sits there and smokes weed like, wow, look at me. Look what I'm doing. I'm smoking weed. Dude, I'm smoking weed. I can't believe I'm smoking weed. And it seems to me that the guest doesn't smoke weed that much.
It all depends on the guest, I would imagine.
So I guess he went into a ramble about me. I guess somehow.
But, I mean, here he is with Julian Lennon. I'm sure Julian isn't there to talk about you.
No, Julian was kind of making sense. He was just like, hey, man, I think.
But my point is, he didn't come on the show to talk about somebody else. I'm sure he's there.
But it's Club Random.
Or doing something.
That's what I'm saying, Robin.
You tend to kind of get off on a tangent. Maybe that's the whole point of the show. But anyway, so.
It is called Club Random. So he randomly thought about Howard Stern. Apparently, a lot of people are thinking about Howard Stern. Like that's what made me fucking put Howard Stern on the show, because like everybody talking about Howard Stern. Apparently, there's a false equivalency between Howard Stern and Russell Brand, according to Matt Walsh, who once called me a formidable voice in the culture.
JustinFREAKIN is a formidable voice in the culture. And The Guardian that I want to point out and begin with, and all we really need is the headline.
We probably won't watch a lot of this.
Panic and rash decision-making. Ex-Bud Light staff on one of the biggest boycotts in U.S. history. The article goes on to elaborate.
Still doesn't make any sense to me.
The multinational beer company promoted Alyssa Heinerscheid to vice president of marketing for Bud Light in July 2022. She became the first female VP in the beer's 40-year history. It's just old white men, she says one former employee of the company leadership. That's why we were excited to at least have Alyssa in that role. In a March 2023 interview with the lifestyle podcast Make Yourself at Home, Heinerscheid spoke of her remit. And we've played that clip before. Alyssa Heinerscheid, that's the clip of the woke female Bud Light executive talking about how they want to change the branding of Bud Light.
I hate his new logo.
Boys anymore. I want to make it more
graphics. They look like shit.
The Dylan Mulvaney promotion happened. Instead of ensuring a prosperous future for Bud Light, Heinerscheid's tenure was marked by a sharp decline in sales and one of the biggest boycotts of a brand in U.S. history after a minor social media partnership with Dylan Mulvaney was attacked by right-wing anti-trans groups. Over the past month, The Guardian has spoken with insiders at Bud Light and the agency the company contracted about what exactly happened and why the brand refused to back Mulvaney during the backlash. Former employees who wish to remain anonymous spoke of leadership incompetence and said that executives were operating...
Yeah, fuck Bud Light all the way around.
We're now vetting public comments under the brand's Instagram post to remove any hint of negativity. Anheuser-Busch did not respond to multiple requests for comments for this story. It goes on from there. You know, we get the whole, it's a long story. We get the inside story from these various ex-Bud Light employees who are very upset that the company, from their perspective, caved to pressure from us right-wing bigots. And it was just chaos, and it was just...
At least he admits it.
Behind the scenes, and Bud Light bungled everything, every step of the way, they say, which of course they did. I mean, that part of it is true. But as I said, the most important aspect here can be seen just in the headline. One of the biggest boycotts in U.S. history. Which, first of all, there are a lot of lessons here that can be learned. A lot of lessons that Bud Light learned the hard way. Don't promote transgenderism is one of them. Another one is, as we hear, they were so excited. We got
that phrase doesn't even make any sense.
This is very exciting. It's diversity. We're embracing diversity. I'm pretty much admitting that they hired her purely for that, purely to sort of check off the demographic box.
Yeah, marketing is soulless.
To promote the brand is to market the brand.
Yeah, capitalism sucks.
As soon as she,
You're so close, Matt.
Almost as soon as she gets into that position, the company it tanks, is destroyed.
But it was a targeted campaign.
She is there to oversee and to engineer the worst drop in sales in the history of the company.
You guys engineered that.
But it's also interesting just to see the media finally acknowledging, calling it one of the biggest boycotts in U.S. history. The media is finally acknowledging that. And you may remember that in the beginning, it was different. It's not how it was. They made fun of the boycott. The left did, the media did. They made fun of it.
We're still mocking you.
There was a lot of skepticism for a long time that the boycott was actually, there was skepticism that it would accomplish anything. Skepticism from people on the left and the right.
Did I click on the wrong video? Is he ever even going to get to the point?
This isn't going to go anywhere. But now even the hostile left-wing press admits that the boycott was historic.
Don't worry, I got kittens for later.
I mean, there are very few examples of a major brand suffering these kinds of losses due to an organized boycott.
But why? What's your point?
Period.
You did it to attack a whole group.
The Bud Light boycott being
just for existing,
significant because it was one of the few examples of a conservative boycott being successful. But it's actually one of the few examples of any boycott against a major brand being actually successful. The left generally has boycotted much more often, and they have the reputation of being more effective at it, and they are. Up until they typically have the more effective boycott.
I guess striking is boycotting.
Right, the bar is pretty low.
A type of boycotting.
But boycotting, whether you're on the left or the right, doesn't matter. Boycotting a major, iconic, American brand. It's not even really American anymore because it's not owned by an American company, but traditionally, historically American brand. Boycotting something like that is a tall order, and to actually make an impact is
less
very, very
animals,
difficult. It rarely
less
happens.
cops. Were you here for gator murder?
We were able to go with the Bud Light boycott and just destroy the company completely. Is an entirely different matter. So I guess
isn't this kind of like an AI?
Partly it's I told you so.
AI could replace Matt Walsh, and nobody could tell the difference.
I mean, them, the left, the media, even the skeptics on the right who said the Bud Light boycott was a distraction, etc. And listen, people are allowed to be wrong about things.
Like it's every day. The left, the media, the left, the media, the left, the media.
But the people on the right, the conservatives who were kind of making fun of the Bud Light boycott early on. This is going to do anything. This is stupid. This is a distraction. You're not accomplishing anything. Those people, okay, and there are some prominent ones, trying to discourage it. Say this is not, we shouldn't even be doing this.
I thought this was about Howard
Those people
Stern.
said that.
See, Howard Stern said the most disturbing thing I've ever heard. That was the title of this video.
Now, I know a few of them have come along afterwards and said, you know what, I got this one wrong. You guys were right. The Bud Light boycott was great.
He's telling me he got this one wrong.
Acknowledge that, then I think you should keep that in mind because that is a major blow to their credibility. That this is when we want to talk about impacts on the culture. It's one of the most impactful things destroyed, not just by boycott. Not going to hurt you on this side because your customers, because we're not, we'll be forgiving of that.
I was catfished by Matt Walsh. That had nothing to do with Howard Stern. I want to know what the most disgusting thing that Matt Walsh had ever heard was, or the most disturbing thing he'd ever. Howard Stern said the most disturbing thing that he'd ever heard. I wanted to know what that most disturbing thing was. We watched almost that whole video clip, and we never found out because it had shit all to do with fucking Howard Stern. Ass hurts because they fucked me up the ass on this video. They announced that Jimmy Carter had entered hospice like several months ago. They were like, he's in the last phases of his life. This motherfucker's still out here like going to a peanut festival.
Well, former President Jimmy Carter and former First Lady Rosalind Carter making a rare appearance in Plains, Georgia earlier today. Carter's right there enjoyed a ride through the Plains Peanut Festival. The Carter Center tweeted out a prediction about what the two would have for lunch, saying, quote, "We're betting peanut butter ice cream is on the menu." Today's appearance comes a week before former President Carter turns 99.
God damn. Keep kicking it, Jimmy. Keep kicking it. Went to the Peanut Festival. I really want to know what Matt Walsh thought was the most disturbing thing he'd ever heard. We'll never know now. Cats. Just a couple of cats on a cat tree. Doing some bonks. Kitties are so cute. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's alright to have a little fun before you hit the sack. JustinFREAKIN. We'll see you tomorrow night. Don't forget we got the Republican presidential primary debate, the second one. It's on Wednesday night at 9 p.m. That's gonna be a